He's being driven crazy at home. He's supposed to be crazy at work. And in between, he's probably really going crazy. I'm John Renton with my review of Dark Side of the Ring, Brian Pillman Part 1 and 2, the loose cannon himself. And if this was any indication of what we're going to get for Dark Side of the Ring Season 3, we are in for something special. Because there was no way they could tell this story in one part. Had to be a two-parter. And a lot of the wrestling stuff was already well known from documentary pieces and people that knew him, and done podcasts about him. We get to hear from Jim Cornette, JR. We get to hear from Stone Cold Steve Austin that knew him for a few years. We get to hear from Kim Wood, the former Bengal strength coach. He had a lot of stuff to say, and he got a lot of camera time, which is good. We get to hear from Dave Meltzer. We also get to hear from various family members. Sister Linda, that was on the Loose Cannon documentary, and also his kids. And we also get to hear from Melanie Pillman. And I want to say right now, I have no sympathy for Melanie Pillman. No love at all. There's loss, and then there's not dealing with it, and there's not taking care of your goddamn kids. And she fucking deserves every bit of verbal scorn she goddamn gets, and every bit of suffering that she has brought on herself. Fuck that goddamn bitch. So let me know your thoughts in the comments. Austin talks about how you could feel Pillman's magnetic charisma. And Jericho, by the way, did a good job narrating this. The guy's a star. The loose cannon character, broke the fourth wall and blended, like, where did the character end and Pillman begin? Sometimes he didn't even know. Austin talks about the gold chain that he got while he was with Pillman during the West Hollywood Blondes run, and that it's very sentimental to him. Like, we got to get gold chains. And that was some good stuff. Talked about Pillman's work and intensity, how he worked hard at everything. And he really did. Like, you could see it. I was a big fan of Brian Pillman from the first time I saw him in WCW in mid-'89. I could see just how big of a star he was going to be. I love Brian Pillman. 35 years. 35 fucking years. Knowing what led to his demise, you have to wonder what could have been with his career even in another 10 years. Would he have, had the accident not happened, would he have been able to wrestle? Had he been able to still have a grip on himself after the accident and maybe done commentary and everything, he would have been he may have been the best wrestler turned commentator of a couple generations. Like, seriously, he was that goddamn good at talking. JR talks about signing Pillman to WCW. We get footage of WCW as well as Stampede Wrestling, even when Stampede Wrestling was on its ass. Cornette says you could tell that Brian wanted you to notice him. And how he was good friends with him and everything. And I know some people may not like the fact that Cornette's included on this, but I'm just going to say right now, whether you are a fan of Cornette's words on his podcast or whatever, he knows his wrestling history. He also knew Brian, so it totally makes sense here. And even though I'm not a fan of Meltzer at all, I understand why he was included, because he traded tapes with Brian, and he helped kind of bring the word out, in the early days of dirt sheets and everything, that Pillman was somebody to look out for. And he absolutely was. And Brian was a natural promo. We see clips of the infamous ECW promo. You're not writing this interview. I am, because I'm Brian fucking Pillman. Linda talks about all the throat operations, and that stuff's been covered before, all the polyps and everything. That's why he had the raspy voice. He couldn't speak for 2 to 3 weeks, and he didn't. He didn't let it stop him. Kim Wood, really, it was nice to hear from him, because you could tell how inspired he was by Pillman, but how gutted he was to see his downward spiral. An ankle injury ended Pillman's run in football. And then he trained with the Hearts. And, of course, the line, if you can't hear screaming, something's not going right. Yeah, when I say that. And then JR talks about, the Hearts and Cornette as well. Meltzer, doing the tape train, all that. Flair loved him. Worked with Pillman on a Saturday night show. Did a big rating. Pillman was a ladies' man. He had a lot of relationships where he slept around a whole lot. He met a woman named Rochelle that he had a kid with, Brittany. And Brittany was the one that got the most. They got the most like emotional reactions from me. And I've never had kids. I will never have kids. I'm not stable enough to have kids. I know that they need to be raised in a loving environment, and kids need to be taken care of. And that is what Melanie did not do. And it was really, really gutting to see how these kids are still haunted by this stuff, because no kid should have to go through that. She just saw him as dad. He also had another daughter, Danny. That was part of a brief love affair that he had before he met Rochelle. Or maybe, when he met Rochelle. It's really hard to tell. Some of the timeline got a little bit muddy. But when he found out about her at age 2, he wanted her to be part of his life. And yes, he, Pillman did cheat on Rochelle multiple times, but she stayed with him. And then during one show in Atlanta, the groundskeeper broke in and stabbed her several times with an ice pick. Okay, that was a bit of a, curveball, but goddamn, being stabbed with a fucking ice pick, that's ridiculous. He wanted to be more than a mid-level guy. God damn, good lord, that ice pick thing, God, that's freaking haunting. Bischoff talks about Pillman's early time in WCW, about how all the management changes stunted his growth. And also the fact that they killed off the Midnight Express, Zenk, and Pillman feud that would have made Pillman a big star. Whether Pillman would have won the championship or not, it still would have been cool to see. I learned that from Cornette's podcast. But the Hollywood Blondes are formed. Brian read the dictionary, get better promos. Pillman would always do great with his work. I mean, you could tell whether there was 500 people, 5,000 people, didn't got. I mean, the WCW wasn't drawing 5,000 people at that point, except maybe for pay-per-views if they papered it. But they did a whole bunch of, really, really good teamwork. It's a real shame what happened and how the Hollywood Blondes had to be broken up. Well, they didn't have to be, but they were. Because of stupid management. Then he met Melanie, who was a showgirl, and Rochelle was hurt. And, boy, if you take a look at how Melanie looked on the Raw right after her, the interview right after Pillman passed away, and then you take a look at her in the Loose Can documentary, and that was 2006, I believe. You can tell she had some work done because she blew a lot of it up her nose. Holy fucking shit, she aged 35 to 40 fucking years. She looked awful. And, I cry crocodile tears for a goddamn bitch that blew all the goddamn money and was a toxic piece of shit to her kids. Sure, she lost her husband. Guess what? You gotta be there for your goddamn kids, and she wasn't. Some people can't handle shit well. I don't know how I would handle losing a significant other, but I'll tell you what I wouldn't do. I wouldn't drink and do a whole bunch of drugs. I would take care of the goddamn kids. You stupid fucking twat. Anyway, she had 2 kids from a previous marriage. Pillman Jr., he was driven to succeed, but also he was driven to provide for his kids. Then I believe, the Hollywood Blondes had a match. It was Flair's return to the ring after he left WWE, and it was at the Clash of Champions. And basically, what ended up happening is the rating ended up being bad, and well, they got that fucking pull. They got the team, got broken up soon after that, which was really fucking stupid. Granted, who knows what would have happened had the team not gotten broken up, but then Melanie was controlling and a bitch. This is where the stuff I was like, oh my god, this family did not hold back, and I don't blame them. Rochelle takes off. Missing persons report was filed, and to protect Brittany. Now, Rochelle was understandably hurt. She was getting her daughter taken away from her. She was hurt by the fact that she recognized what Melanie was. Then the family life starts to wreck Pillman. Nobody should try to take the kids away from their mother, and if given a chance, I would never do it in a million years. Yeah, but you did, Melanie, and then you blew it all up your goddamn nose. And I don't care if people want to get upset about that, because there are certain things you don't goddamn do. So kidnapping charges, a misunderstanding because Rochelle tried to see Brittany, and they thought when she wasn't supposed to see her, and then it's a big misunderstanding, and then Rochelle was told a whole bunch of stuff and then shot herself. Sorry, this is where one of the emotional parts happened, where I had to pause it. I go, oh, I'm going to pause this. And then she was shot and then died being airlifted to the hospital. Linda had to call Rochelle's mother and tell her, and she said no mother should have to hear that their child passes away. And Linda was very genuine here. It was very nice to hear from her. I'm glad that she was part of this and provided that insight. Pillman felt guilty, paid for the funeral. Melanie felt guilty that she drove her to that. Well, not so guilty with another funeral thing a little bit later. Brittany has anger towards Brian because of stuff that happened with her mother, and that's understandable, totally understandable. Even though he's her dad, that was her mother. She had to grow up without him. And then Melanie is there's the devil incarnate. She's an evil person. She's always been that way. How she shouldn't have said those things to her mom, and that she's living the life she should have lived many years ago, and that, she'll probably live to be 100 and be miserable from all the pain and everything she causes. And Jesus fucking Christ, Brittany did not hold back. Don't blame her one goddamn bit. And then Melanie ain't sorry. she ain't. I did not get an indication she was sorry. I know some people can change, but good God, there's just evil, and I saw evil there. I know people like that are manipulative and goddamn trash heaps, whether they're men or women, and that's what she is. Pillman, wanted to make big money. Bischoff couldn't offer him more than the 225 grand he was earning. And then Kim Wood suggested, hey, how about you maybe play WCW and WWE against each other? The loose cannon character is born. Bobby Heenan Clash, January Clash 96 thing is like, what the fuck are you doing? Because Heenan had the, bad neck, and Cornette's like, he got him. I respect you, Booker Man, a month later at Super Brawl 6 because of the I respect you strap match. Cornette and Meltzer talk about how the fans perceived the loose cannon gimmick. Kim Wood says, well, get him to give you a release. Bischoff did. Bischoff talks about, that he didn't get worked and everything, and that Pillman did this. Of course he fucking did. Of course he fucking did. I mean, I love Bischoff, but he got fucking worked because Pillman was working him because he wanted to get more money. Now, maybe he would have gone back to WCW. Maybe he would have gone to WWE instead. Who the fuck knows? Because the accident happened a little bit later. But, yeah, Pillman showed up in ECW, and he basically he was made for that company, even if it was short term. He was made for ECW at that point, the loose cannon stuff. He was one of the hottest guys in wrestling for a short period. I would say for a number of months. Brittany, then, she talked about how she didn't know where the gimmick ended and Brian Pillman began. He would go the highest bidder. Meltzer got fueled. Meltzer would have gotten fooled, but Brian didn't talk to him. Kim did say, well, hey, he's trying to do this and everything. But Kim has respect for Meltzer, and that's fine. I respect Meltzer's historian aspect. Some of his, some of the stuff he says now, and again, I guess there could be similarities with Meltzer and Cornette. But anyway, Kim Wood, talked about Vince. So what do you do with a whore? You fuck him. That's what I think of Vince. Apparently he doesn't like Vince very much. Pillman showed up at a Vegas Insider Industry show, and he met Vince. Hey, Vince, how the fuck you doing? This kind of stuff, and making an impression of JR. It's just like, I'm trying to sign you, you son of a bitch. What the fuck you doing? And can I get a picture? JR is like, he said you should take a chance on Brian. And then he was in negotiations with WWE and WCW. It's fucking money. Man plans, God laughs. And he buys an 80 grand Hummer, or Humvee at the time, and was driving it along, though he wanted to save money. And then the severe ankle injury and stuff like that, and that's pretty much it. That, that was where part one ended. It ended with the car wreck. And would Pillman be the same? And I remember hearing about this, in school and everything. Here, because I was 15 years old at the time. I was like, oh my God, Brian Pillman, he's not going to be able, what's going to happen? Because you read about it a little bit, but then we go to part two. We recap part one for about the first minute and a half. Linda says that Melanie called her about the accident. He was in rough shape, all the blood on his face and everything. It didn't even look like him. 6 different doctors worked on his face. 6 different doctors. That's fucking insane. They peeled back the scalp before putting the plates in. The ankle was hanging off. The nurse had to put the ankle back on the bed. Whew. Kim Wood was horrified. Yeah. I mean, he was like, it's going to be okay, buddy. And he's thinking inside, I mean, and he loves his friend, but he's just like, oh boy, I really got to make him feel better, but fuck, this is bad. And then Linda remembers him crying. Be grateful that there were no kids in the car and that you're going to be okay. Linda, again, really genuine, really good to hear from her. Medically induced car accident, muscle relaxers, pain pills, stuff like that, because he had injuries from football and also from wrestling. Pillman recounts the accident on radio. The kids talk about seeing him like that, not recognizing him because he had plates in his goddamn face and he was in a wheelchair. And then the people thought it was just part of the loose cannon character, and the gimmick, says Cornette and Meltzer. They're opposites of each other, if you can tell, if you hear them talk. So anyway, the wreck happened during the negotiations. Vince signed him to a 3-year contract. WCW would have signed him to a contract and for more money, but there would be 3-month, check-ins and stuff like that. And if the contract ended after 3 months, well, if he takes this guarantee from Vince, then it's all right. And we see footage of Pillman signing, in, I think, June, late May, early June of 96. And then the King of the Ring debut, he's going to, and pillage the entire WWE. I'm going to be careful with what I say, as far as that stuff. There are certain words I don't throw out. and he was on an IV for his ankle. He'd unhook it, and he'd go out there and he'd do his stuff, and then he'd come back and hook it up. And he would have an infection that he was supposed to get taken care of, but unhooking the IV was preventing that from always happening. And the ankle break incident for his surgery, Pillmanizing the ankle and stuff like that, even though many people have tried it since, it's worked to diminishing returns. Sometimes it's worked, and other times, not so much. Pillman's got a gun. I thought that was a bit too far, but it also fit Pillman. I mean, it really did fit, so it got attention. Even if it got negative, it got some attention. And at that time, WWE was doing whatever they could to get basically any people drawn in. And then footage of the apology, Pillman going on commentary on Shotgun Saturday Night, that short-lived show. I want to say right now that Pillman, if he had embraced doing commentary, he would have been great. He was natural, even with the raspy voice from all the polyps being removed and all the throat surgeries. He was a goddamn natural on commentary. JR tries to tell him that, you don't have to be in the ring to succeed in wrestling, and you can actually have a long career doing this. He wrestled, but he shouldn't. I mean, Pillman should have not wrestled. He gutted through that, but he was taking pills. He was doing a whole bunch of dependency stuff. I mean, because he was in so much pain because of his ankle, still hooked up to an IV that he was trying to work through. And you can't work through some things, even though he worked through so much stuff already. He couldn't walk through the airport. And other people were just like, it's not that they didn't care, but they're like, he'll get through it. The issues piled up. The wrecked rental cars. Kim would, he was estranged from him. Pillman showed up at his house and was like, my kids are upstairs. You got to go. You got to go. You're messed up. It wasn't that he would have invited him in if he wasn't messed up. And then JR had intervening at a drug test. And he said in previous interviews, even though Pillman died of heart disease, I often believe he died of a broken heart. Pillman felt betrayed. JR feels and I've criticized JR's commentary before, but criticizing JR the man is just stupid. It's really a shame that he feels responsible, like Gary Hart felt responsible about Gino. And no, JR shouldn't. JR shouldn't feel bad about that at all. He couldn't get him out of that spiral. We get to Bad Blood 97, where Pillman had died that morning. Cornette has to call the hotel, find out about it, and the guy finds out about it, says, I'll put you on hold, and then he says, Sir, Mr. Pillman's dead. And I remember 16 years old being gutted about that. I remember being very gutted. Hearing about that, and why? Why the fuck? Like, how? Go get Bruce, Pillman is dead. Other people are recounting all this stuff, and it's really, really sad. Pillman Jr. didn't believe it. Because he was like, there's a camera crew and everything, stuff like that around here. No, there isn't. Oh, shit. He's really dead. Like, family's hugging. 10 bell salute. The interview with Melanie. Now, however I feel about Melanie, having an interview 24 hours after finding out that her husband died, Vince McMahon feeding it into her skull about pill dependency and this kind of stuff. How are you going to provide for your family now that your husband's dead? Gee, Vince, first of all, I resent your tone, McMahon. Good goddamn. Fucking hell. If that was an indication of just how shit that was, and the kids having to see that years later. Good job, Vince. You pretty much indicated that you're really going to have to make it up to Pillman Jr. should he ever go to your company years later. God damn. And, send her a check for $100,000 and keep her off TV. Cornette said JR didn't like it. He hated it. And it was stupid. It was so fucking tasteless. It was one of the most tasteless things done in wrestling. Heart disease was the cause of death. Camera crew was brought by Melanie to the funeral. And Linda says, no, you got to leave. That right there is where all the goodwill for Melanie just pretty much evaporated. I mean, besides what Brittanys said. Vince and JR go to the funeral. Memories of Pillman. JR's like, this should not be part of this. This man is so young. And kids didn't quite understand what happened. They were playing around. Melanie says she can relive it but doesn't want to. She spiraled out of control, alcohol and drugs and stuff like that. She still receives royalties from Brian, Danny says, or Brian's estate, all that, from WWE, and Danny has seen zero. Kids didn't see anything. Or next to nothing. That's fucking horseshit. That was their dad. Melanie married into the goddamn... Yes, she was their mother, but guess what? The kids deserve that. The kids deserve to go on and use that goddamn money, and you know what? She deserves every bit of bad karma she fucking gets. So... she spent all the money. You know, it's crazy how you go from having a silver platter to not knowing when your next meal is going to be. That's from Brittany. And then Melanie nearly died of alcohol poisoning. Stepfather was very abusive, had the dogs trained to abuse Brian Pillman Jr. This is where it really got bad. He did not have a good childhood. Everything I latch onto was taken away. Linda basically saved them. Genuine person, really genuine person. Melanie wants kids forgive her, but doubts they will. They talk about Pillman's legacy, what could have been, basically. Had the ankle injury not happened, I don't think he would have wrestled much past another 5 years, but I think he would have turned to commentary then. That's my opinion. What do you think Pillman's legacy would have been had the accident not happened? What do you think it would have been had the accident happened, but he had been able to get a hold of his issues? I think he would have done commentary. He would still be doing commentary now. Melanie hopes the kids won't be mad, or Pillman Jr. Well, I lost my dad. I could hate my mother, but then what does hate solve? And that he has reconciled with her to an extent. Austin gave him a weight belt that his dad had, and Pillman Jr. got in the ring and is going to be carrying on the legacy. And then we talk about that, and that's pretty much it right there. So yeah, that's recapping about an hour and like 30 minutes and about 21. So what were your guys' favorite parts of the doc? That was really gutting about the family, really gutting. Anyway, agree, disagree with what I said, like, share, subscribe, Twitter handle in the description. I'm John Rentlin. I'll see you soon.